Okay, now let us create a form inside of the create.php. So write the basic HTML5 syntax and change the title as CRUD insert user. So let us link the bootstrap files. Inside of href, write the basic PHP syntax and then echo the base URL. So basically our bootstrap files are present in assets, inside of assets in CSS folder. So let us write the same thing, assets and then slash CSS. So and then we have bootstrap.min.css. So now let's check whether the bootstrap files are linked or not by using a random text inside of the body. So write as CRUD application. Let us add some class like text center and then text primary. So now let us check the output. Yeah, the bootstrap files are linked successfully. Okay, now let us remove this h1 and let's create a header. So div container. So inside of it, let us create a h3. So and add a class to it like text dark and font weight bold. So inside of h3 write as CRUD application. Well, let's check the output. So now and we have to align it to the center. So let us add some styles to it. Like text align center. And let us a hover effect by using box shadow. 2 pixel, 2 pixel, 8 pixel and 2 pixel with some black color. And add a margin of 2%. And padding of 2%. Now let us refresh the output. Yeah, this is how we can create a card. So let us create a form inside of the card like div with the class name card and call md8 so that it will be take 8 columns and with an offset of 3. Instead of that, create a h3 and write as create user with the class text secondary and let us align to the center by adding text center and then font weight bold. Now let us refresh the page. So now we can align to the center by using offset of 2. This is how we can create a card. Okay, now let us add a box shadow to the card. So add style. So select the card, and inside of the card write box shadow having 2 pixel, and then 2 pixel, and 8, and then 2 pixel, having a color as B8, B8, B8. So it is somewhat whitish color. Yeah, this is how we can create a box shadow to the card. Okay, now let us create a form inside of the card. So write the form syntax. Inside of that, take a div with the class name row. So inside of that, take a div with colMD8 or colMD6 and offset to 3, so that it will be arranged to the middle of the card. And then take a div with class name form group, and inside of that first create a label. Instead of the label, let us write name. So this is a name field. So let us create an input for that with the class name form control. So let us add a placeholder like a name, so let us copy this thing. First let us add a name to it. So name equal to name, and let us write a value. So we will write the value later. So copy this thing and paste it 2 more times. So then change the label to email, and then change the type to email, name to be email, and change the placeholder to be email. So these are the 2 fields we have created. And lastly, remove this label and input and add a button. And then button, inside of button, let us write a create. So with the class name button primary. So the button will be in blue color. So after, let us write a anchor tag, and let us add a class to it like button secondary. So and then write inside of anchor tag as cancel. So let us refresh the page. Yeah, this is how we can create a form inside of the card. So inside of the form, let us add a method. So we have 2 methods, normally get and post method. So I am using post. So probably get, using get we can pass the elements in URL. So then inside of action, write the basic PHP syntax, and then echo the base URL, and we have to pass to it user. Inside of that we have a create function. We have to pass it these all elements to the user controller. So base in URL and concatenate with user, and then we have a function called create. So let's refresh the page. So whenever we click on create, the page is redirecting to user inside of the function create. Okay, now let us load some form validation. So $this form validation. So we have auto loaded this form validation in autoload.php. So we don't want to load again. So directly we can use. So set rules. So we are setting the rules for the name field as well as for email. So write name and then label name we have to be required. So these fields are to be required, and copy the same thing for the email. So change the name tag to be email. So here required, in addition to that, we want to have a valid email. So write as valid email. So let us write an if block. So whenever $this form validation runs, so whenever this form validation run, if it is false, if it won't run, we have to display the same page. So that inside of that, let us place this view. So else, if we don't have any errors, we have to store the data. So let us refresh the page. So but we are not getting. So we have to add this form error below the input tags. So write a basic PHP syntax and echo form underscore error with the name, and copy the same thing and paste it for the email. Then change the name to email. Okay, save the page. Now let us refresh. Now you can see the name field is required and the email field is required. So whenever we refresh, we are getting this thing. So when I create, but the name field is missing again, so we have to set the value, and we don't want to remove that value. So that inside of value, echo set underscore value name. So once we have set the name, it won't be changed until we remove it. So copy the same thing and paste it for email and change the name to email. Okay, now let us see with the example. So let me write a name to be Ram. So when I create, now you can see the email field is required, but the name thing is not removing. We are successfully rewriting to the user and we have a function create. So now we have to create a database. So first, inside of phpMyAdmin, we have a database CRUD app. So inside of that, let us create a table having 4 columns. So first one is user ID, and second one is name, and third one is email, and fourth one is created date. So when the person is joined. So set the type as varchar, and for create underscore it, let us change it to date. So I am auto incrementing the user ID. So give length as 50 for both name and email, and save the table. So now let us store the data getting from create to this table. So we have to use model for this. So inside of model, create a function called create. So instead of create, $this db insert into the users. So we are having table with the name users on $form array. So here $form array is array. So let me take this $form array and paste it in create. So this $form array is getting from user.php. So let us create this array here. So first we have to load this model. So $this load model. So we have a model with the name user underscore model. So we have loaded the model. Now we can use the model. So let us create that form array. $form array equal to array. So now we have to store the values getting from create.php to this array. So $form array, inside of the first we have a name. So that name equal to $this input, and we are getting those values using post method. So that name. So copy this thing and paste it 2 more times, and then change the form array to email, and lastly form array as we have to get the date. So that is, so here I did a mistake, this post not post. So let us remove the last thing and change as date, and write capital Y month date. So we have to get year, month and date. Now $this user underscore model, we are having inside user underscore model we have a model called create. So we are passing this array, so $form array. So $this session. So whenever the data is successfully inserted into the table, we have to display a message. So that we are using a session. So set underscore flash data, we are having a section with the name called success. So in the text called new user added successfully. So let us redirect the file. So redirect base URL, and then we have to concatenate with user, and we have a function called create. So whenever this function create is called, and we are going to load the create. So we are getting an error. So user underscore model having line number 8. Okay, let me see. So here we have to remove this parenthesis. So let me refresh it again. So let us fill this form. So let me click on create. Okay, now their data will become. Okay, now the data is inserted successfully. Let me insert it again, like John, and email to john@gmail.com. Let me create. So now the data is inserted, but here the date is not getting exactly what we have. So I think I have a made error. So change that name to create underscore at. So we have the name inside of table as create underscore at. So we have to pass this array with the name create underscore at. So change it to create underscore at. Created underscore at. So now refresh the file again and save one more data, like Srinu and Srinu@gmail.com. So refresh the database. Yeah, now data also coming. So we are getting the content from create.php to the table users. So now we have to display the session here in a alert form. So create a basic PHP syntax. Inside of that, dollar success. So this is a variable, and dollar this session user data. So inside of that we have success. So here user data success is getting from controller user inside of the function called create. So whenever the success, so if the success is not empty, so if we have some text or the success is not empty, we have to display the alert. So close this PHP tag. So create a div with class name alert, and we have to show in green color. So use alert success with the text center and font weight bold. So now let us assign the text to the div. So echo the dollar success. Now let us refresh the page. Now let us insert one more value. So name will be Mahe and email will be mahi@gmail.com. So when we click on create, now you can see we have a alert with a new user added successfully. But the thing is, now let us place this session inside of the code so that it will be shown inside of the code. So add one more user data, like name will be Vineet and email will be vineet@gmail.com. So click on create. Yeah, now you can see new user added successfully. So this is how we can insert a value into the database by using view and by using a controller.